Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste, assalamu alaikum. Today, Sunday, April 3rd, is the first day of the Islamic month of Ramadan. To our Muslim brothers and sisters, we say Ramadan Mubarak. May your fasting, dua, and worship enrich your lives. This is also a time of the Christian observance of Lent and the Hindu observance of Navratri. These observances fall at the same time in interesting ways, which involve fasting, prayer, and introspection. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 96th edition of our Zoom public meeting. So we are soon approaching the 100th anniversary, and we are going to have something grand here in this same time, same space, and we are going to make a number of new exciting announcements, new initiatives. So for 95 unbroken continuous weeks, we have been here every single Sunday. We haven't skipped a Sunday. In the past year and 10 months and 1 week, we have featured over 291 presenters from all parts of the world speaking on 95 topics. We wish to thank all those who have contributed in whatever way towards the success of this ongoing Pan-Indo-Caribbean and Pan-Indian Diaspora project, which you will no doubt agree is historic, pioneering, and professionally executed. Our chairperson today/tonight is Janine Gilhari from Belize in Central America, which is also considered part of the Caribbean. She's a young businesswoman who has her own fashion brand called House of Gilhari. She graduated in 2019 with a bachelor's in fashion design and fashion business management. Ms. Gilhari held the title of Miss India Belize and represented Belize in the Miss India Worldwide Beauty Pageant in Malaysia. Janine, welcome, and please chair the meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Mahabir, for the introduction. It's always a pleasure to be here with all of you. Good night, good morning, good evening, namaste, assalamu alaikum to everybody, depending on your time zone, because as you know, this is a platform in which people from all over the world join, which is really amazing. As Dr. Mahabir mentioned earlier, Ramadan Mubarak to all our Muslim brothers and sisters who are fasting from dawn to sunset this month. And it's also the time of Lent for Christians who commemorate the 40 days Jesus spent fasting in the desert. And it's also Navratri, when Hindus honor the divine feminine Devai mother, Durga, for 9 days and 9 nights. Now, as you know, the COVID pandemic is still rampant all over the world. I think everybody either has lost somebody that they love or somebody that they know in their community. And we're all just so fortunate to be here. So let's do everything we've been doing thus far to keep ourselves and our loved ones safe. As you know, this is a weekly forum. It's hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Centre, which is a legally registered researching and publishing company operating since 2010. And in order to keep this program going and to make it bigger and better, as with all things, if you have any suggestions or opinions on how we can improve, please contact Dr. Mahabir. And if a donation is within your possibilities, also contact Dr. Mahabir for those details. Now let me introduce to you our moderator for tonight/this evening, Ms. Shalima Mohammed, a business teacher and researcher from Trinidad and Tobago. She obtained her master's degree in business psychology from Franklin University in the United States. She's a strong advocate for health and wellness practices based on traditional and alternative healing. So Shalima, nice to have you again. Welcome, and please take over.
Thank you very much, Janine. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Namaste, and a very warm welcome to all of you. Ladies and gentlemen, like most of the others, today's public meeting will take the form of a panel discussion. So we would appreciate if you would please mute your microphone unless you have to speak. The microphone icon or symbol is at the lower left corner of your screen. Just click on it to see a / on the icon, and then you're muted. The background noise can be a little distracting, so let's please try to avoid that. Over the next 2 hours, we will be discussing Vastu Architecture. harmonizing man, materials, and nature. Vastu Shastra is an ancient Indian system of architecture and design. It literally means the science of dwelling. At the core of Vastu Shastra is the idea that energy is all around us, some of which has positive effects on humans and some negative. Eliminating the negative and enhancing the positive at any private or commercial location will help occupants of those buildings to think and act positively, and in so doing become more progressive and prosperous. According to proponents of Vastu Shastra, if a building is not constructed according to Vastu principles, the effect on those living or working there will be a lack of harmony, and this discordance can adversely affect health, wisdom, and wealth. Vastu aims to achieve harmony and prosperous living by eliminating negative energies and enhancing the positive ones. Vastu Shastra is the written part of Vastu Vidya, the wider theories of architecture and design from ancient India. Let us get some more in-depth insights from our panel of presenters. So ladies and gentlemen, our first speaker today is KISHAN from Suriname. KISHAN is the director and Vastu consultant of Anahata Holistic Lifestyles, School of Vedic and Holistic Sciences. He's a specialist in Vastu, astrology, and yoga. He's also a certified access consciousness therapy energy healer. KISHAN is a math lecturer at the University of Applied Sciences in Suriname and dedicates much of his time to teaching Hindi. He is also the secretary of the Suriname Hindi Parishad. Welcome, KISHAN. Please proceed. You can present for 12 minutes.
Thank you so much, Shalima. So from my side also, Namaste, Assalamu alaikum, good evening, everyone. And I will start today my presentation on remedial measures. As Shalima has said, Vastu aims a balance in energies that gives us peace, prosperity, and progress in life. But how do we really achieve that? That's a really beautiful part in Vastu, which we call the remedial part, the remedial measures that exist in Vastu. In the presentation, I will talk about what Vastu doshas are, how do we correct these doshas or these deficiencies, and what are the remedial measures that can be done. I would like to say that during this presentation, I will not give remedy measures that people can do. There will be some general recommendations, but every remedy is to be done on the basis of each plot or house itself, because every house, every energy system at certain places, they differ. Yeah? In life, we all know that we have to have a balance for everything, whether it's health, finance, mental health, anything. Just like that, we people, we need balance in life. Even the house we live in or the place we live in, we stay in, needs balance. And that's the balance of energies there. Because only balance can create harmony in our life. The word dosha is literally or loosely translated as a fault or a deficiency. And it's a deficiency or a distortion in energies within the house, the energy fields that are there within the house or in the vicinity of the house. And the moment there are some deficiencies in energy fields within the house or in the vicinity, these create obstacles and difficulties in our life. And it can also have a negative impact on our health and our physical and mental health especially. We all know Vastu, one of the basic things in Vastu, basic factors, are the 8 directions, the 4 cardinal directions and the 4 sub-directions that exist. Some of these directions we call as the source directions because we get the source energy, we get the energy of progress and health in our life. And some of these directions we call the sink directions, or the energies that give some bad qualities to our life. So the northwest, north, northeast, and east directions, these are the source directions. We also call them the Chandra Nadi. Just as in our human body, our left side of the body is related to the moon, to the Chandra, and the right side is related to Surya, to the sun. Likewise, in the house, the southeast, south, southwest, and west directions, these we call the sync directions or the Surya Nadi. The energies from these directions, they create a negative impact in our life. A dosha occurs whenever the Surya Nadi, the energies in the negative directions are increased, or the energies in the positive directions, the Chandra Nadi, are blocked. That creates then a dosha, and these doshas have a huge impact on our health, wealth, financial situation, professional life, relationship issues, and everything around that you can think of. There are a lot of doshas that we can identify, and any Vastu expert can identify a lot of doshas, but there are a few which we call major doshas. These doshas, they create havoc in our life, literally. Those are wells, depressions, bore wells in the negative directions, the Surya Nadi, southeast, south, southwest, and west directions, and also one of the positive directions, the east directions, because the east is related to fire element, so we don't want water element or depressions in that area. Roadhead situations. Roadhead situation is a situation like a T-junction, where at a T-junction, one of the roads comes straight to one of the plots. And these situations from any direction is bad for us. It's one of the major doshas. Terraces from to the negative directions, to southeast, south, southwest, and west, they create a strong Surya Nadi in our life. Because a terrace means an extension of the Vastu Purusha, of the energy in that direction. So we extend the energy by placing a terrace in the west, southwest, or southeast direction. And also toilets in the source directions, the north, northeast, east, and also southeast directions. These toilets can create a lot of negative energies and have especially impact on our financial situation and health situation for the women staying in such houses. And two others are sea openings or ducts to the sink directions, and staircases in source directions, because every staircase is seen as loading in Vastu. So we want to load the negative directions and not the positive directions, the source directions. Whenever we have some doshas, how do we correct them? We do that by two measurements, which we call remedies and rectifications. A remedy improves the situation for 60 to 70%, and a rectification improves the situation completely. During a remedy, we use metals, gemstones, colors, trees, and certain other elements to bring balance, to create elemental balance. And a rectification means doing structural changes. A remedy is often easier and cheaper to do, and rectification is a bit difficult and more expensive to do. And here I would like to point out that we should all remember that removing the factor means often structural changes is actually given higher priority, because that will change the situation completely for us, for our betterment in our life. These are the 12 parameters which are used in Vastu to bring the elemental balance if in a certain situation doshas are there. Colors, stone cladding, wooden paneling, level differences. We also use plants at certain levels to create different energies, metals, creating false ceilings, windows and openings, bells, yogic remedies. Those who do yoga, I would always encourage those people to keep doing their yogic practices, because these practices, they create a strong energy which can negate the negative impact of the Vastu doshas. Using gemstones and also yantras, certain diagrams to change the energies. These are some example pictures of the materials used during Vastu remedies. We can do in our houses. Some of the metals we can see: lead blocks, gemstones, red corals, ruby stones, green emerald, blue sapphire, many others, pearls, silver coins. These are all the elements that can be used to bring the balance in the house, in the doshas. And how do they work, really? All these planets, gemstones, the colors which we use, they all represent or reflect the qualities of certain planets and the five major elements that are there in the universe. And they reinforce and propel the helical movement of the source energies. Because in our life, we need the source energies and not the sink energies, not the negative energies, but the positive one. So by doing these remedies, we reinforce the source energies. And how do they work? What do they do? These gemstones or the colors or trees or the wood paneling, they either enhance or control the elements or the directions, the doshas that are there. And that repairs the energies in the affected zones that leads to smooth expression of the energy, especially the helical movement, the clockwise movement of energy. And whenever the energy becomes clockwise in a smooth manner, that's the time when we experience peace, prosperity, and progress in our life. Remedial measures in Vastu Shastra Vastu has a strong correlation with Yoga Shastra and astrology because all the remedies given in Vastu are related to astrology and yoga. Astrology gives us the insight on how or what the Vastu doshas are and how to generate some general actions to do the remedy. And Yoga Shastra shows us how we can create a protective shield around us that can stay for longer periods of time whenever we have some deficiencies in our house, in our vicinity, in our plot. And yogic practices are always very good as Vastu doshas remedies because the yogic practices, they create a strong energy field around us as a person. Yes. Some yogic practices are these here. Whenever we have some Vastu dosha in the eastern direction, people can practice Bhastrika technique, pranayam. For doshas in southeast, we can do Kapalabhati. For doshas in south and southwest, we can do Sudarshan Kriya technique. For west doshas, we can do Reiki and pranic healing. For northwest, we can do Ujjayi breathing. For north, Vipassana meditation. And for northeast, Soham sadhana. Overall, the best technique to do for to counterattack all the energies, all the negative doshas in any direction is Sudarshan Kriya, the best thing to do. Colors are also beautiful way to create some positive energy or to change the energies wherever it is a negative situation. So we often should use white, light blue, and light green colors to the source directions, east, northeast, north, northwest. And darker colors like black, yellow, brown, dark blue, we should use to the sink directions, south, southwest, and west directions. Some general remedies we can all take and do and experience in our life is first of all to create a situation so that we have enough sunlight immediately from the north, northeast, and eastern direction into our homes. As adults, we should always sleep with our head towards the south direction. Children are often advised to sleep with their head to the east directions. Clocks and mirrors are advised to be placed on the eastern or northern walls. And one of the things that creates a lot of impact in us are leaking taps. So we are advised to immediately repair those, especially in the sink directions, because any leaking tap in the sink direction creates some negative energies there. When we don't have a kitchen in the southeast direction, we should start lighting a candle in the southeast direction every day. The best place for daughters in a house is the northwest corner. For the sons is southwest. For the master room, we should always keep a room in southwest direction. We should always provide larger windows to north and east directions, reduce openings toward the west and south, and provide toilets not to the source but the sink directions, the west, southwest, and the south directions. One of the major things is the loading aspect in Vastu. We should always give more load to the southern and the western directions and less to the northern and the eastern directions. We should always get rid of broken things because we often have many broken things at our place and we don't use them for many years, but those places, those things create also negative energy in our home. Transformers, we should always provide in the southeast corner. Stairs, we should provide to the sink directions. Kitchen is always in the southeast. And we should provide yellow glass to the south windows if you have big windows, and blue glass to the west windows if you either have those. If you don't have those colors, you just use the yellow or the blue window film to put on your glass to uh, to minimize the energies from these sink directions. And I think that's it from my side. I'm within my time, I hope. Yes, and thank you all for listening to this presentation.
Thank you, Kishan. You perfect timing. I was just checking. That was extremely comprehensive, I must say. And while you were talking, I'm trying to figure out where am I, north, west, south. Very, very interesting information. So I can't wait for the question and answer session. So thank you again. We go straight into our second speaker, who is David FOJO from Trinidad and Tobago. He is a Vastu development consultant, a green architect, a student of the Sthapatya and other Vedas. David holds a master's degree in environmental design and development and completed his professional studies in architecture and engineering at Pratt Institute and Brown University. He has completed projects in many countries of the region, including Suriname, St. Lucia, Grenada, Dominica, the USA, and Trinidad and Tobago. Welcome, David. You have 12 minutes to do your presentation.
All right, fantastic. Okay, well, this is going to be a practical presentation on, so actually building Vastu buildings in our modern commercial world. I started studying Vastu maybe 35 years ago when I was in Fairfield, Iowa, and but I've been back in Trinidad for about 22 years, and we've managed to do quite a lot of buildings that I want to very briefly scan through. So, the title of it is The Benefits of Integrating Vastu into Modern Architecture and an Enlightened Development Process. So I'm going to skip through these slides very quickly, and we can always come back if there's any questions. So by using Vastu with the best modern design and development knowledge on the planet, we can create buildings and cities that are a quantum leap superior. The difference between a very good Vastu building and a normal conventional building, the word quantum leap hardly even gives it justice, because it's a massively different, where okay, you want me to start back my video? Okay, hold on. All right, I'm starting back video. Right. So you may find things, and I have a lot of commercial clients. So we find that our clients begin to experience profits, where so the employees are more productive, and the owners are more profitable by 10, 15, 30, maybe even 40%. So this is very, very important real knowledge that the real world developers and people that are spending money on a home or a building absolutely need to know, and it's in a very, very quantifiable, noticeable way. So I'm going to scan through a few real projects that we've done. This is the St. Lucia Financial Center that actually won Building of the Year 2014, and the Prime Minister has an office here, and it was built using Vastu principles. You can see the symmetry, and the central point is higher. Those are some of the hallmarks of a Vastu building. This is the Costad University headquarters, and before we did this, I actually predicted to the principal, who is Dr. Paul, I said, I'm going to build you something where your students are going to learn better, they're going to learn faster, where the faculty will enjoy teaching more, they will teach better more clearly. There'll be harmony and there'll be coherence in the student body. There'll be less social disorder. There'll be more coherence, more harmony, and people will just learn better, and the overall school will just be a better, healthier, more successful place. She said, all right, Mr. FOJO, that sounds a bit fantastical, but let's see. But since it's been built, and it's been built for 3-4 years, every time I go there, she says, Mr. FOJO, you were so right. Thank you so very much. This, all of those things you said have all come true. So this is a very real case study that we can actually go and visit, and you'll see the amazing benefits of Vastu. But basically, the building is built exactly on the grid, so that the long axis face exactly true north. It's not grid north, which is a common mistake, and it's not magnetic north, but it's true north, which means that a line drawn through the north-south axis literally goes through the actual North Pole. And this on the bottom left, that's the Brahmistan area, where they have a lot of events, and it brings the whole place together. This is a Vastu building that we did in Tobago, and it kind of shows the sequence, the vagaries of the design world. Is that we did a first scheme on the upper left, a second scheme, and we ended up building a slightly simpler, but the main thing is that it's Vastu, and it's exactly north-south axis, has all the entryways in the right direction. This is a 3-story with a roof garden home that I did when I first got back to Trinidad, and I was the architect, the general contractor, and the interior designer. And it's pure Vastu. You can see in the upper left here, all of the Vastu grids, which were calculated using their birth chart. So they do these very, very complicated formulas to get a vibration and right proportions for this particular family. The husband and the wife both had to give their charts, and then we calculate ratios and external perimeters that are most in harmony with their vibration. This is a building we did for lawyers, on the left, and on the right hand side, a building we did for a city bank that never got built. These are two conventional Vastu, meaning that not only is it Vastu, but it looks like Vastu. It looks Indian by looking at it, which there's not necessarily a direct link. We can do Vastu buildings that look ultra modern. They could be minimalistic. They could be any style superimposed on the foundation and the core of Vastu that would still have the same effects. But these two clients both wanted the real authentic, so that these columns are very ornate, using the Vastu sacred geometry in exquisite detail. This is a Vastu town that actually got built. You can see the central roadway and the central parking area, and all of the lots are all done so that all of the 4 boundaries of each lot is exactly on the cardinal directions, and as I said, true north and true east, and not grid or not magnetic. They built phase 1 and phase 2 of this project, so there's about 600 houses that have been built, and it really has a remarkably good effect. Some of my sayings are: synthesize the best of the East with the best of the West, and synthesize the best of the ancient with the best of the modern. We have massive amounts of knowledge now on the planet that's fairly accessible. You just have to use discernment, and by synthesizing it all, we can create buildings that are a quantum leap superior to a normal building. This is a huge project we're doing out by Piarco Airport here in Trinidad, and so on top, those funny aircraft, those are actually EVTOLs, which stands for electronic vertical takeoff and landing. We're going to have a fleet of about 12 of these space age craft that are, speaking about quantum leaps, a quantum leap better than helicopters. So that's just an interesting side point. But again, this building is follows all of the principles of Vastu. This is another theme park that we did. The reason that I put this slide in is it shows that once you understand the rules, once in a while for special effect you can break those rules. So for example, in a song you can have a regular beautiful beat and that's going through the whole song, but once in a while you can have a little bridge where you just go crazy and you fall off the beat and you do some beautiful guitar solo and then it falls back, and in that moment when it falls back into the main rhythm, there's a point of beauty. And in this case, in the upper left corner, we broke the Sthapatya Vedic grid, and we had specific reasons for doing it. But once in a while, as a little work of art, you can do that. This is a Tobago mall that we did, and again, it follows all of the principles that you can see visually here. That there's a main access where the vehicular access lines up and everything is all centered, and then from this axis here there's also a central axis, and Sthapatya Veda likes so the entrances to not only be centered for commercial buildings but also to be very prominent and a little higher in terms of height. So we made them prominent by using this windmill theme that is very historic and gives a bow to Tobago history. This is the Acerite Nature Center, major new headquarters building, and this is a surprisingly Vastu building that's in downtown Port of Spain, and it's exactly true north, and it has all the entrances in all the right place and the central atrium space and all of that. And this is a Vastu inspired, I have to say, because we had limitations. HDC came to us here in Trinidad and they said that they want a master plan for Port of Spain East for these 100 acres. So obviously we couldn't change the road grid. The road grid is off by 5 or 6 degrees, which apparently was a surveying error because there's evidence that they were trying to make it true north. But back in those days they didn't have the good instrumentation. So we had to live with that, but we followed the central courtyards and to have walkways exactly true north going through each of the central courtyard areas and also going east right through the middle of these urban courtyards. So hopefully if they build it, that will make Port of Spain East into a much more coherent place with less crime. This is something, this one here on the left, I met with the Surinamese president 3 times doing this. We're still hoping that we can build it, but it's extremely Vastu, every last dictum down to down to the orientation and the entrances and the location of different functions and so forth. So Vastu, one of the things that Vastu gives that modern architecture completely missed is that Vastu gives an ideal location for every function based on the quality of sunlight, ventilation, and the energies of the earth, and many other things that they factor in. But one small example is that the kitchen should be in the southeast. Well, why should the kitchen be in the southeast? In some of the writings, but also so discovering it yourself through modern logic. The old school thinking from Vastu is that the housewife wakes up early, goes into the kitchen, and then she makes tea for her husband. And I know this is not too not too kosher these days to say these things, but this is the thinking back then. And she will also make the meal for the family. And the sun just coming up in the like southeast floods the kitchen, and there's beautiful shadows being cast by the leaves of the like trees on the walls, and it's just the exact right light quality to wake someone up in a very smooth way, where they don't wake up with a bad mood, and they wake up feeling good and cheerful. So that she's in the exact right atmosphere where she wakes up in just the right way, feeling full of harmony, feeling happy. She brings the tea to her husband, and then the food to the rest of the family, or they will come into the dining room, and she's just full of harmony and full of good feelings, and she imparts those good feelings to the rest of the family. And that way, it's that good feeling from the southeast radiates through the entire home, and actually makes for a nice balanced day for the entire family. So just that simple act of the kitchen being in the southeast makes the entire home function a lot better for the entire day. These are well, so we won Best Services Export Provider for 2013 for excellent design work in 7 countries during that year. And these are 2 of the projects that both happen to be Vastu. The one on the right is a project I am doing. It's a small health center that we hope to open in the next year or so. This is a large but completely Vastu project that was done behind Movie Town. And you can see it actually even looks a bit Vastu, but these are all Vastu forms. Like the floor plan is based on a square, but with authorized forms that actually augment to the square and create certain kind of effects. This is a real authentic Vastu, where the owner said he wants a spiritual retreat center. So each of these columns, we like painstakingly did sacred geometry Vastu in extreme detail down to the 1/16th of an inch. And then we sent those drawings to India, where my master, well, one of my masters, Dr. Ganapati Sthapatya, had a gigantic stone farm at stone yard, where he had at one point in time during his heyday, he had about 2,000 employees carving Vastu stone columns. And so these were going to be imported from India to create a very special effect in terms of the energy of the building, but also the visual strong effect of the Vastu architecture, of the Vastu sacred geometry of each of the columns. And this just goes to show you, this is another health resort done in a Vastu layout, but it is done in a rustic back to nature style. So it doesn't always have to be ornate and Indian looking. Once you follow the right sacred geometry and the right orientations and the right layout, it can actually still have the same good effects of something that looks very ornate and very Indian in terms of their impact on the human physiology. They can be the same. Yeah, this is the site plan that we did for like Port of Spain East in a bit more detail, and you can see the where the east-west penetration through the courtyards, and also the north-south walkways that connect the city, using walkways going through a series of green areas and a series of colonnades. This is one of the buildings that we designed within Port of Spain East. So I named it Cathedral Place, and it's a Vastu building in a Vastu inspired master plan. This is a little view of one of the like courtyards, and you can see the ancient Sthapatyas. That's what you call a a great architect who does Sthapatya Veda or Vastu. They're called Sthapatis. And the Sthapatis knew so well the special effects of sun and how to heat and cool and the energetic, so the energies of the earth and everything. So this is one of the many courtyards where there's a north-south walkway, there's a east-south, a east to west walkway, and each time you're going through a series of different green courtyards. Many people say that Vastu is the Indian version of Feng Shui, but actually Feng Shui is actually the Chinese version of Vastu. The story goes that Lord Buddha, who was a Hindu prince, was schooled as a young royal in Vastu, and when he went on his mission and he left the palace and he traveled through China, and then he traveled through Japan, and on his various journeys he taught all of his disciples Vastu, and that Vastu then went on to become Feng Shui. So Feng Shui is actually inspired from Vastu. Sometimes you can use Vastu sacred geometry within buildings in a very minute way. So this is a shot from my house where I have the Flower of Life, which is one of the most famous sacred geometry symbols. And I have it, on the wall, but also built into the sliding glass doors and built into the railings, that blue in the back. And there's a series of 4 that have this little hole right in the middle that is right at navel height, and the energies are supposed to be unrestricted at that level, and they pass through 4 of these Flower of Lives to help the energy to flow and to give the energy a flavor of the Flower of Life. And this is in the actual floor. This is a residential 3x3 Vastu grid. This is actually the basis of a lot of residential Vastu architecture, where, for example, the southeast would be the kitchen, and then the north and central would be the ideal place for the learning and for a study and for knowledge work. And because we as architects see that and we work with that grid all the time, I decided to make a sort of artistic theme out of it. And I have this repeated right in the bindu point of each of the paras. So the building has 9 paras, and in the middle of each of the paras, I have this little symbol that recreates the Vastu 3x3 grid. And then in the Brahmistan, I have a little symbol that has 9 stones. There's 9 stones by 9 stones, which is the way that we break down each of the paras into 9 by 9, and then each of the 9 by 9 is then broken down into 3 by 3, and so forth. So in this case, I sort of used it as an artistic theme.
Hi,
And
David.
then,
Pardon the interruption. Do you need much more time?
no, I only have no. I just have about 3 more slides. Let me just rush through it.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Yeah. Well, this is the sacred geometry fretwork that I customized for my house. You can see it has the Flower of Life. The Flower of Life is here, and then the Vastu 3x3 grid is there. And this is just the overall effect. And I just want to leave you with the thought that I said before, but just to reiterate it, that by using Vastu with the best modern design and development knowledge on the planet, we can create buildings and cities that are a quantum leap superior to what we use every day, which you can call conventional architecture. It's a massive difference, which we've quantified in several studies to be between 10 and 30% superior by every metric, which means by productivity, by happiness, by job satisfaction, by prosperity. These are all actual metrics that we can measure to prove this statement. So that's the end of my presentation. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, we can talk later.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Your presentation beautifully exemplified all the principles that KISHAN would have outlined for us. And I'm hoping that we do get many questions after all the presentations. So thank you very, very much.
You're welcome, and I'm going to stop sharing now.
Great. So ladies and gentlemen, we continue on to our third speaker. And this is Mr. Javier Ortiz CABREJOS from Peru. He's an architect and urban planner and the director of the Department of Vedic Architecture at Maharishi University of Latin America and the Caribbean. He studied architecture and urbanism at the Ricardo Palma University of Lima. Javier holds a postgrad degree in Vedic architecture from the Maharishi European Research University in the Netherlands and a postgraduate degree in sustainable architecture from the University of Salamanca in Spain. Welcome to ICC, sir. You have 12 minutes for your presentation.
Okay, thank you very much. I am very happy to participate in this meeting where we are sharing these beautiful ideas about Vedic architecture. I will try to keep in my minutes. So I will start to share my screen. This presentation we are making in the name of our Maharishi University of Latin America and Caribbean, and from where I am the director of the architecture and Vedic architecture and urban planning area of the university. I would like to start with Anahata Isozaki, that is a very important architect in our times. He won the Pritzker Prize in 2019, and he said that architecture has a cosmic sense in its design. With this saying by one of the most important masters on modern architecture, we know that now that the whole architecture in the world is looking for something bigger than just to make some nice buildings. We are looking to create a cosmic sense in the design. Louis Kahn, another very important architect from Finland and was living in USA, he was saying, everything is consciousness. In it resides the secret of how we are made. Know it. You can reach the ability to build the universe from knowing a simple leaf of grass. And Max Planck said, I consider consciousness as fundamental. Matter is a derivation of consciousness. Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, the founder of Maharishi University, said consciousness is primary. Consciousness is basic to everything in life. So what is consciousness? Consciousness, in the words of Maharishi, is that one element in nature on the ground of which the infinite variety of creation is continuously emerging, growing, and dissolving. So consciousness is that. What is it? Consciousness is the basic element of creation, is the only element of creation. So everything is consciousness. If we say that everything is consciousness, that means that also the house in which we are living is consciousness. The city in which we are living, for sure, is consciousness. The universe is consciousness. Everything is consciousness. Everything that is physical in the universe is consciousness, in Maharishi's words. So we are talking about architecture of consciousness, and that is what is Vedic architecture, the architecture of consciousness or consciousness-based architecture. For example, we see in this chart, in this bottom of the chart, we see the unified field of all the laws of nature. That is the ground, the basic ground from where all the laws of nature grows. No? All what constructs the universe is born from the unified field. As we see all the galaxies, the atoms, and everything in the universe to be built from the unified field. Also, the architecture is built from the unified field. All aspects of Maharishi Vastu emerge from the unified field. So we have the unified field as that field of pure consciousness. And we have all the aspects of Vedic architecture as expression of this consciousness. And that means that architecture is a full expression of consciousness, and not just an expression of consciousness, but is consciousness. The house in which we are living, the city in which we are living, are completely consciousness. So all the laws of nature that build the universe and that comes from the unified field are an expression of the natural law. And all the cosmic structures in the universe are an expression of these laws of nature that comes from the unified field. But the cosmic structures and the laws that structure these cosmic builds, these cosmic bodies, are also the same laws that structure the global structures as the planets. And for sure will be the same laws that can build the individual structures as their houses. So when we study the laws that build a cosmic structure, we are studying also the same laws that are used to construct an individual structure. But we don't see that in the modern architecture. For that, we see that that are many hazards in modern architecture. For example, Dr. Menzies and Bourbeau published a study in 1997 in the England Journal of Medicine, detailing their discovery of the disease building syndrome. The disease building syndrome affects to more than 30% of the population of the big cities with depression, anxiety, and psychological sickness. And that comes from the use of materials that are polluting the houses, and also for the design that is an improper design according with the laws of nature that build not just the nature around us, but also our own physiology. Other important study confirmed that pollution inside our own homes could be even 20 times higher than in the most polluted streets in our cities. Richard Neutra, another very important architect from Austria, he said, all the designs that impact the natural baggage of man or that creates tension should be eliminated following the demands of our nervous system and our total psychological functioning. Le Corbusier, one of the fathers of modern architecture from France, said, architecture is that one moves, that does good, that produces bliss, that inspires. Vedic architecture is that kind of design that accomplishes all these great desires of the great masters of architecture all over the eras. Sthapatya Ved or Vedic architecture is architecture in harmony with natural law. The Sanskrit word sthapan means to establish, and Veda means the knowledge of natural law. So Sthapatya Ved or Vedic architecture is the art or the knowledge to establish. Where we should establish or what we should establish? We should establish first ourselves in our own consciousness. Establish it in our own consciousness, we can perform action or we can make a design. So the architect should be the first that should have his consciousness in full harmony with the cosmic consciousness. That means that using transcendental meditation, using yoga, using siddhi, you can allow your consciousness to go into the deeper levels of your own self And from there, you can make a proper design, a design that is according with natural law, a design or architecture that is proper consciousness architecture. So Sthapatya Ved is the Vedic science of architecture, and Vastu is the Vedic technology of construction. Maharishi Sthapatya Ved is the most ancient and complete system of architecture and planning according with the solar, lunar, and planetary influences on Earth with reference to North and South poles and equator, connecting individual life with cosmic life, individual intelligence with cosmic intelligence. The Vedic wisdom says, Tatapinde yatha brahmande, which means the same laws of nature that are present in the infinite forms are present also in the smaller structures. That is the reason for what we know that the same cosmic laws that are making the planets and the galaxies to move are the same laws that we use to design a proper house. To study Sthapatya Ved, to study Vastu, to know really the meaning of Vedic architecture, one should go to the main books, the main textbooks of Vastu. And those are the Manasara Vastu Shastra, the Mayamata Vastu Shastra, the Brihat Samhita, the Vishvakarma Vastu Shastra, and other books. So if you or one of you wants to know more about Sthapatya Ved, you should go to the sources and not just to some books that are written with some conclusions. The Vastu Sutra Upanishad says, Yata Brahma Vidya Tata Rupa Prakya. That means the real knowledge of the form gives the knowledge of Brahman, the totality. The knowledge of architecture, the Vastu architecture, Vedic architecture, can give you expansion of consciousness, can give you the possibility to get really enlightened. To create a form, to make a design is a manifestation of totality or Brahm. And the Rig Ved says all forms are an image of the being. So all what is in the universe or all what is possible to be created by an architect is just an expansion of the being, an expansion of consciousness. Health, happiness, and fortune are influenced by the orientation of the buildings. That is one of the 4 main columns of Vedic design. The main principles of these 4 columns of Vedic design are proper orientation, proper placement of the activities and the rooms according with solar and cosmic influences, right proportions, and the placement of the Brahmastan, the center of life. Orientation is with reference to the sun. So the main orientation is towards east or towards north, and to the reference to the North Pole and South Pole. So the strongest influence of the natural law comes from the sun, from the east. The house should be so designed that the different energies of the sun correspond to the specific functions and activities of each room. Then natural law always support every aspect of our daily life. Here we see a typology of a Vedic house. So from the east, we should have the entry, towards northeast, the worship or meditation area, towards north, the study area, the library or the place where the kids can study, towards northwest, the guest room, towards west, the living, towards southwest, the master bedroom, towards south, the dining, towards southeast, the kitchen. And in the middle, we have the hall or the Brahmastan, that is the silent area around there. All the activities are organized. People don't know that many misfortunes and even diseases arise from lack of proper orientation of their house in which they live and work. So different orientations have different influences. Orientation towards east and towards north give influence of prosperity, happiness, and enlightenment. And all the other orientations are said to be not so positive. And that is also being sustained by scientific research. The brain cells are firing according with recent research in neuroscience that are saying the firing patterns of neurons in the thalamus of the brain are altered by the direction one is facing, thus influencing the entire brain functioning and the whole physiology. So our brain, our neurons, and the magnetics in the brain are highly sensitive to orientation. We can say, a compass in our brain. Doctors practicing Vedic health routine ask their patients about the orientation of their homes and in which direction they sleep or work, because one should never live one day in a building that is not according with Vastu, according with the Astanga Sangraha. The Journal of Neuroscience number 15 and Brain Research Bulletin number 40 are publishing different studies in which they show that the neurons, when we are facing east, are firing in a most ordered pattern. And also the segregation of serotonin, that is the neurotransmitter that is related with happiness, is more produced also when we are facing east. And a study published in the Journal of Social Behavior and Personality regarding the effects of orientation of houses found that there are 75% more burglage in homes with south entrances compared with homes with north, east, or west entrances. A research project conducted by a cardiologist in California revealed that 50% of the HERP patients lived in homes with south entrances. A self-reported study measuring improvement in well-being of people who live in or work in buildings built according with the principles of Sthapatya Ved, subjects reported significant improvement in all the following categories: general well-being, quality of sleep, energy, relaxation levels, dietary habits, happiness, mental clarity, and efficiency. So Vastu and Vedic architecture is not just something that comes from our ancient Indian culture, Vedic culture. It's a reality. It's a reality that is being found and studied by scientific research, and it is showing all the benefits that are coming from living in a house that is perfectly designed according with Vedic architecture. The Mahabharata says it was here that the divine creator of the universe first sung the Vedas, referring to the east direction. Here first grew the 100 different branches of Om. So east is the most important direction also given by our ancient Shastras. And continuous violation of natural law day by day, year after year, generation after generation, through incorrect orientation, placement, inevitable results in the widespread of hazard of architecture. Wrongly placed entrance may contribute to inauspicious negative influence as anger, aggression, constant fear, poverty, lack of vitality and success, and chronic diseases. when we live in an auspicious Vastu that promotes positive evolutionary influences. Here we will see just few slides showing some scientific research. For example, this one is showing that the people that is making puzzles, when they are facing east, they resolve their puzzles in fastest way. And there is also a bigger frontal coherence when they are facing the east. In this other study, we can see that in houses, no, perfectly built according with Vastu, no, that the 80%, 88% of the people feel happier in Vastu homes. Almost 70% feel healthier, and 45% are doing better in the school. 92% of the people has expressed more success in their homes. 75% improvements in their relationships. Almost 70% improvement in their profession, and almost 70% improvement in their wealth. In quality of life, almost 80% improved their family relationships. 85% got more fulfillment of their goals. 95% more comfort at home, and overall improvement of quality of life, the 90% of the people. About health, 80% of the people living in Vastu houses showed better mental health, 70% better physical health, 60% better sleep, and 85% less stress and anxiety. People living in Vastu homes, in Maharishi Vastu homes, showed also more better creativity. And last study just published a few months ago showed that even in North Hemisphere or South Hemisphere, the effects in Vastu homes, in 160 Vastu homes that were studied here, were the same. So Vastu is not just having this proper orientation as an exclusive thing. We can see in different traditions of the world, as the Temple of Jerusalem that is perfectly oriented towards east, the Saint Peter's, no, in the Vatican is perfectly oriented to the east. The main cities in the past, in Rome and in Greece, were perfectly oriented towards east. So there is a grid, perfect grid with north, south, east, west, perfectly oriented, no, to design a proper Vastu city. And the main principles include orientation and symmetry. So we have a global system of Vedic city and country planning.
Javier, excuse me. Do you need much more time, or would you be wrapping up?
Just 1 minute, please.
Thank you.
I'm sorry if I am taking longer. No, the proposal of Maharishi was to rebuild the cities in the world, because the cities are the main focus of stress for the world, because they are having all the streets in a wrong directions. And when we have these satellite cities with Vastu, no, we can progressively going into rebuild a whole city with this modular master plan system. And we have here a very few just examples of Maharishi Vedic architecture in different parts of the world, even in Latin America, where we are having our office. This example is in Colombia, and this is a Vastu city in Lima. This is part of a Vastu city of 1,000 hectares for 2,000 families outside Lima. So we thank our Master Maharishi Ji for this knowledge that has given us. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was a very, very enlightening presentation, and we could certainly see how David's designs actually help to affect physiology and psychology of the users of buildings. So we really appreciate it. I wish we had more time to allow each of you, but our audience will have some questions at the end, and we really want to facilitate that. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much.
And now we have our fourth and final speaker. This is Dr. Lokesh Ramnath Maraj from South Africa. He's a lecturer in Curriculum and Education Studies in the College of Humanities at the University of KwaZulu-Natal in Durban. His research is mainly located in the interdisciplinary field of curriculum and religion. Welcome, Dr. Maraj. You have 12 minutes.
Salam namaste to everybody. Thank you very, very much. So I'm going to go straight into my presentation. The literature on Vastu Shastra claims that 93% of home buyers in metro cities of India seek out Vastu compliant homes. In April 2017, India.com reported that the Indian Institute of Technology in Kharagpur decided to include Vastu science in the curriculum for architecture students. Renowned architects like Charles Correa and Jeffrey Bauer have used Vastu Shastra in their projects. Of course, there are some who deny the validity of Vastu Shastra probably because of Pandits who instill Vastu Dosh fear in people. The question that I want to address in my presentation is the relevance of Vastu Shastra in the 21st century. Vastu has been part of the Indian continent for thousands of years. Yet, much of what is sold as Vastu Shastra today seems biased towards making a profit and propagating particular ideologies. Currently, there may be very little emphasis on solving problems. Very briefly, what is Vastu Shastra? There is reference in the Rig Veda to the protector of the house, Vastoshpati. So the verse that you see there is Ami Vaha Vastoshpate Vishwa Rupan Anya Vishan Sakha Susheva Edhinaha, which is protector of the dwelling, remover of disease, assuming all kinds of forms, be to us a friend, the granter of happiness. The Sthapatya Vidya, a Veda within the Veda, deals explicitly with architecture. Over 2,500 years, several texts were produced on Vastu Shastra. We saw some earlier. Rao tells us of the Kashyap Shilpa Shastra, the Vishwakarma Vastu, and the Shilpa Ratna Vastu Shastra. There is evidence of Vastu Shastra in the Ramayana and the Mahabharata. The word Vastu is derived from the root word vas, which means to dwell. Vastu in general may be defined as matter or thing which exists, maybe bricks, stones, irons, etc. In contemporary terms, Shastra refers to a theory, an abstraction, or literature or text with the context of its usage determining the exact equivalent meaning in English. So Vastu Shastra denotes all kinds of buildings, town planning, and the laying out of gardens. It also embraces site selection, soil testing, planning, design, and determining cardinal points for the orientation of buildings based on astronomical and astrological calculations. Now to get to the question of my presentation, is Vastu Shastra relevant in the 21st century? So the practice of Vastu Shastra is said to be fragmented. Tillotson avers that indicative of this fragmentation is its use not as a whole architectural program, but in its bits and pieces that have little role to play in the definition of contemporary architectural idiom. So the fundamental purpose of Vastu Shastra has been obliterated by a kind of ritualism fashioned to hastily satisfy an inner conflict without the complementary architectural manifestation. Its complete redundancy as an architectural program which in its long history had thrived with the variables of climate, topography, lifestyles, as well as the social, political, and economic situation of its land, renders all the allied building crafts superfluous. The practitioners who use or make references to Vastu Shastra could be identified as the following. There's the Indian architect, who in search of his identity makes emphatic references to the traditional building vocabulary. There's the Vastu Pandit, who provides guidelines largely regarding the orientation principles that dictate the layout of the building. The astrologer, for whom Vastu Shastra belongs to the same tradition as astrology and the points of intersection between the two. The traditional craftsman, who today is bereft to the tutelage of the traditional team and finds application of his skill primarily in the conservation of old buildings. Conservation architects who document and analyze monuments for the sake of repairing and preserving them, and art historians who analyze them to develop a theoretical discourse on history. So today, Vastu Shastra has become more relevant to the modern human being because the environment has gained importance due to air, water, and land pollution. The common person feels more stressed and dissatisfied due to lack of space and pollution than in old times. Some scholars argue that Vastu Shastra has become necessary because it balances the 5 basic natural elements of water, fire, air, sky, and earth, and the location, direction, and disposition of construction, which directly impact life. The principles of Vastu Shastra can be easily tuned, extended, and modernized to meet the needs of humans because the basic needs of humans never change. Vastu explains that the resultant built form of cities is today complex, unstructured, shapeless, and chaotic because of the dynamic change, population pressures, and land speculations. It no more reflects a coherent response and ambience to its environmental context. The situation is reaching a crisis stage. The new settlements are missing any sustainable ecological relationship with the built form. Human beings are experiencing a loss of totality, wholeness, harmony. Human beings are experiencing fragmentation and alienation at the individual, societal, and cosmic levels. So this ancient knowledge, Vastu Shastra, has not been presented in terms and concepts familiar to the modern world. To evaluate the relevance of Vastu Shastra to the complicated problems of urbanization and overcrowded cities of the present world, we need to find out how the traditional knowledge of Shastras can be fruitfully used in our modern world. When looking at the damage to our cities, we need to explore the prospect of a living environment that is ecologically balanced and culturally stimulating. And therefore, Vastu Shastra, as an applied knowledge, is an important approach in establishing a balance between human settlement and natural resource use, while ensuring that the use of natural resources and systems does not deplete the land's carrying capacity for future generations. The appropriate knowledge of Vastu practice, of architectural design, and the methodology has been sustained through thousands of years and is still applied in some parts of the world by architects, planners, NGOs, and citizens, as we've seen in the presentations today. This confirms the importance of Vastu Shastra in the present context of sustainability. Vastu Purush Mandala, as a central idea of a plan, evolves to meet natural elements such as light, water, wind, fire, and biodiversity. While the terms light, air, ground, water, and so on were intrinsic to the traditional program of architecture, as they would be to any other program concerning architecture, the perception and the architectural consequence of these terms were newly imported to echo the modern movement in the West. For example, the design of Chandigarh by Le Corbusier, a French architect, was welcomed by Jawaharlal Nehru as a creative approach in new terms of light, air, ground, water, and human beings. The role of the architect continued by using the new perception to study and understand the tradition of the people within the region, to consider the local conditions, and in some cases, to force certain changes in life of the people by his knowledge of a healthy and refined life. Vastu Shastra has become pragmatically oriented over time. And this has caused it to become more empirical. Many of the principles and themes found within Vastu Shastra resonate with those of many well-known contemporary philosophers of technology. Vastu Shastra remains a viable and a powerful way to blend science and technology within the design to create environments for human beings in harmony with nature, cosmic forces, and the universe. The practical result is consistent with aims articulated by Carl Mitchum, Albert Borgman, and Don Heater as leading philosophers of contemporary technology, but does so in a contextually and spiritually relevant way for people who are anchored in a culture that is thousands of years old. Now, Vastu Shastra and modern planning share similar approaches to organizing and producing space, cardinal orientation, geomancy, which is earth divination, topography, and hydrology. Both seek to achieve harmony between these spaces and the natural features and ecology within these spaces. However, Vastu Shastra is widely regarded as a pseudoscience, as its concepts are based on a complex system of intuition, astrology, superstition, and philosophy, which can only be partially explained by contemporary science. As one of the oldest cities planned according to Vastu Shastra, Jaipur is an important example of understanding this ancient approach to urban organization and questioning its scientific credentials. In this growing modern city, Vastu Shastra has maintained the original planning intact throughout the centuries, contributing significantly to the city earning the title of UNESCO World Heritage City in April 2019. Thus, the exceptional design of Jaipur by the royal architect Vidyadhar Bhattacharya might be considered an outstanding testimony to Vastu Shastra and its importance in the Indian city's spatial organization. In modern days, for example, the cities of Jaipur and Chandigarh have followed the principles of Vastu Purush Mandala. Volvhasen has already explained the geometric interpretations of the Jaipur city. The design of Chandigarh by Le Corbusier also corresponds to the Vastu Purush Mandala, the architectural mechanism providing a blueprint for building in the Vastu Shastra legend. Hence, the principles of Vastu Shastra, formulated 5,000 years back by Maharishis and Rishis, are still applied because of their practical and technical relevance. In conclusion, let me say that while Vastu Shastra has a good foundation in nature's law, a lot of it has been misconstrued in the act of blind faith and propagating a dogma. Modern times require a new Vastu Shastra based on climate science and psychology principles concerned with the well-being of those who inhabit it and the earth. Looking at the damage that our cities and development have inflicted upon the environment, one of the prime agendas is to explore the possibility of creating a living environment that is self-sufficient, ecologically balanced, and culturally stimulating. So, we need to look at the fundamentals of human settlements and evolve a system whereby we can establish harmony among settlements, nature, and people, and the changing pattern of living. Hence, if we as a collective are to combat our thoughtlessness, it is imperative to dovetail the wisdom of the past with the technological advances of the present and the future. The need of the hour is to rationalize the thought processes and systems of implementation behind the sustainable settlements of yore and the disastrous results of modern practices. Traditional views are very important for a calculated modern scientific development, for they remind us of the negative side of certain achievements and give useful insight to create a balance between humans and nature. The main concept of Vastu Shastra is to explain how the human body is related to the building and the universe. That is, it establishes a relationship between humans and nature. Here, humans are the subject, object, and the cause of Vastu. They perceive and conceive Vastu in relation to their experiences with the surrounding world. As tool-making animals, they design and control the environment. The sequence of the 5 natural elements is used as the mediums or the materials of the Vastu, known as earth, water, air, sun, and space. So Vastu goes beyond designing and architecture. At a higher level, it deals with the subtle effect of the design on the environment. The Vedic traditions of ancient India always held that the microcosm reflects the macrocosm. A dwelling is an ecological unit, a microcosm that reflects the macrocosm. The modern mind identifies ecology with nature. Hence, an old script of Vastu Shastra that we have today is the most wonderful traditional knowledge existing in the world. And with some modification, it could exemplify all the concerns of humans today. I thank you very, very much.
Thank you, sir. That was an excellent presentation, and you raised a very pertinent question. So it leads us to ask, well, how many urban planners are aware of Vastu principles, and how many of them should actually be involved in all ministries in various countries, especially so in the Western Hemisphere? So I'd like to open the floor now. 2 questions. I want to say thank you very much to all of our presenters. And I want to open the floor to questions from the audience. Certainly, if there are questions or comments that the other presenters would like to make, we can also take that. Mr. Suresh Rajpura, your hand is raised. Go ahead, sir.
Namaste and a very good evening to everyone. What an educational event today. Amazing, mind-boggling. And all presenters were extremely, extremely good. So congratulations to all the 4. Right, now, Shalimaji, I have quite a few questions. So should I risk asking all of them or just one at a time to give other people a chance?
One at a time would be nice. Thank you.
Okay, right. Now, time and again, our presenters, mentioned about facing east. And I take the view that facing east means sun energy. Yeah. However, sun, well, obviously sun is still there anyway, the way it is, but the earth is rotating. So should we move in line with the sun to do certain things during the day? So our hormones are firing on all pistons. Anybody can answer that one, or all of them. Have I got that one right?
Javier, would you like to respond?
Yeah, thank you. Yes, according with the scientific research, no, our brain is firing these neurotransmitters in a better order way, in most current way when we are facing east. That has been proved in many studies. I have trying to show some of them to you. That means that we should try to do all our most important functions looking towards east. For example, when we study, when we eat, when we sleep, it's better to have the head towards east or towards south, no? So facing east is the most healthy way to have our brain functioning in a more current way.
Just to clarify, so it's not facing the sun that is important, but facing east direction is the most important.
Well, sun is at the east. It's true that it's moving 20 degrees towards north and 20 degrees towards south during the whole year. But let's say that the direction that is between these two extremes, 20 degrees towards north and towards south, is the perfect east. So we prefer to face the perfect east.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Suresh, I'll ask you to come back in after this question from Dr. David
Please,
Subran. Okay.
please.
Dr. David Subran, go ahead, please.
Yes, I would like to ask, what can we do when our environments are already circumscribed? For example, roads were laid out by plantation owners and colonial forces and so on. And these control eventually the orientation of our buildings. Thank you.
David, would you be able to respond?
Yeah, hi, Dr. David, how are you going? Yes, I think that we do feel some constrainment because of the existing roads and even the existing buildings. So we have to do the best we can to rectify those things that are not in harmony with all the laws of nature. It's actually, there's a series of things you can do. First of all, you should still orient the building exactly east, because there's very, very powerful earth energies, magnetic energies, solar energies. So the building should be still, so oriented to the cardinal points, north, south, east, west, meaning true north and true east. And then sometimes to reinforce, to sort of protect yourself more, there's a Vastu fence, like a sort of perimeter fence that further defines that can still be exactly on the cardinal points. And so between the building being exactly on the grid, and then a series, it could be one, two, or several fences on the outside, you actually protect yourself from the bad energies. And then any little triangular spaces that are created between those entities and the road could become space for landscaping or for other functions that are not really for full-time human inhabitation. So that's one of the ways that we rectify. They call that rectification. But of course, the ideal thing in terms of overall city planning would be to get it right from the beginning and to have the road network be north, south, east, west. But as you say, that's not always the case. So we have to rectify whenever we can.
Thank you so much. Suresh, you want to go again?
Yes, indeed. Xavier, my friend, you mentioned, if I remember correctly, that is Jerusalem or Vatican is built facing east. Was that a well thought out thing, or is it just by coincidence?
Can you repeat your question, please?
I believe in your presentation you showed, do forgive me if I got the details wrong, but a building, Jerusalem.
Yes.
Or the Vatican
Temple of
facing
Jerusalem. Yes.
Temple of my apologies. Thank you. Temple of Jerusalem facing east.
Mm-hmm.
Is it by design or is it by coincidence?
No, it's by design. No, we can say that the earlier earlier Catholic buildings, churches, were built specifically towards east. They were saying in their mystical writings that the church is the body of Christ, and that it should be facing east because Christ is related with the sun.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, great. We have another question here from Sharmila. She asks, where should you keep your money in the house? Kishan, would you like to respond to that? Where should you keep your money in the house?
There are two places where to keep the money in the house. There's this one place where you want the money to be safe. That's the southern direction, central south. And there's this one place where you want the money to grow. That's central north of the house.
Okay. So I hope that answers the question. And can you also speak to green spaces in schools? Where should green spaces be located in schools?
Well, that depends on the environment there and the design itself, of course. But the green spaces normally we should give to the western and the southern directions and to some part of the east, because north and east are the directions where you should have less of those spaces, because that's a direction where the energy comes, the positive energy, pranic energy is from the eastern direction, as Javier was also mentioning, and from the northern directions we get the JAVIC energy, the magnetic energy. So those are the energies where we should have less of the plantations and everything. And the southern, the western directions up to northwest, that's where we can have landscaping and things like that, and even for schools.
Excellent, thank you. Daryl Sukhdev, would you like to ask your question?
Yes, my question is regarding rectification. Anyone can answer it, David, Kishan, anyone. So in terms of practice, when you're rectifying a property, is it enough to just move doors and move the kitchen and all that sort of thing? How does that manifest itself in practice?
David, would you like to try?
Okay, sure. Well, the first thing is that, as KISHAN was saying, there are remedies, but usually they're not really effective. I mean, they will help, and they're better than nothing. And then the next step up would be rectification, where you do something major. But the thing is, the ideal solution is to build, and it sounds radical, but is to build a new Vastu building, because there's most homes have so many flaws, hundreds of flaws, in terms of the sort of proportion, the overall perimeter, the sacred geometry, the right proportions, where they enter could be wrong. So there's so many things in the average conventional home that are wrong, that if you have the opportunity, the only way to get 100% right, full benefit would be to build a new home or a new building. Well, of course, you can rectify. There are some cases where you can rectify fairly easily, but those are really only when the building is on the grid already. If you're off the grid, then you're just spending good money after bad. But if you're on the grid and you have a few things that are wrong with your home, then you could possibly think about rectification.
Great, thank you. Suresh, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. This question is specifically for David Ji. David Ji, you mentioned about actual north and magnetic north. Can you just amplify a bit more on that?
Yeah, sure. Well, so a true north is a very scientific thing. It's a line that goes through the North Pole. The North Pole does have like a little wobble, but so that's another thing. But the North Pole is a very specific place, and so your walls should be, if you were to extend them, they go exactly through the North Pole. So that's called true north, and that's what Sthapatya Veda and Vastu want to use, because the Earth is spinning around that axis. So by this giant, huge orb spinning through that axis, you're actually spinning at 180,000 miles an hour, or something ridiculously high like that. We are spinning exactly true east, and there's such a thing. spinning around the axis that's a true north to true south axis. So there are tremendous magnetic fields and other energies that are created. And then also the sun's energies are really coming primarily from the east. So we like to, I think most Sthapatis believe that you really, it's a very important thing that all of the walls must be exactly true east and true north, because otherwise you get eddy currents and bad influences. But the common mistakes are, there's something called grid north, which the surveyors use, and they will say, yeah, well, that's north, but grid north is a artificial approximation where you like try to fit these perfect 1 mile by 1 mile squares, onto the globe, which is a curved surface, so that grid north is very often could be off by several degrees. So you don't want to use grid north. You certainly don't want to use magnetic north, because that's even further off. So, but most surveyors learned in school, but a lot of them forget how to do it. So you have to remind them. You have to say, do you know how to construct true north? And sometimes they will do like a solar shot. They'll go on the site and they will actually take a solar shot where the exact location is of the sun, and they will reconstruct true north, because they don't have any other way to do it these days except through a solar shot. But it is very important, and so we make sure that all of our projects are true north, plus or minus a very small percentage of 1 degree.
Just a small question, Shalimaji. Right, David. So the compass that we use, does it point to the true north or a magnetic north?
No. So a magnetic north, and it's very, very inaccurate. It's a very rough approximation that the mariners used to use. But magnetic north is, could be up to, I think in Trinidad the average is 13 degrees off, which is a massive amount off. You definitely don't want to use magnetic north. And the funny thing with magnetic north is it's so influenced by iron ore deposits and various other things that it's completely completely unreliable. And even within a country, some places you might be off by 13 degrees. In another part of the same country, you might be off 9 degrees. I mean, so like it varies from 0 to 13 degrees, and as a Sthapati, you can't afford to take that chance.
Thank you.
Sure.
Great, thank you. I'd just like to remind everyone, if this is the first time that you're appearing in our audience, please feel free to share your email addresses with us so that we can add you to our mailing list and we can have you again for other programs. At this point in time, I'd like to invite Raja to go ahead and ask his question.
Thank you. I enjoyed all the lectures, especially from David and from Javier. It's really wonderful, but KISHAN and the others are also really full of knowledge. My question was, I've studied Sthapatya Ved, and they say the main entrance should be in the east and the main entrance or in the north, because the east is Brahma, the north is Kubera. But aren't they ideal entrances in every direction? Because you divide the grid in 9 parts, and 3 parts in the east are good, 2 parts in the north are good, but also in the south there could be a good entrance. Also the west there could be a good entrance. If there's anyone that can answer that, that would be helpful.
Who would like to offer clarification? Javier or KISHAN?
Yeah, well, as you also mentioned, the north we have some auspicious entrances, in the grid in the east, but also in the south and the west. So the ideal entrance for every direction is if you take the 4th grid from left side on, from your left hand on, the 4th grid, that's the ideal entrance for every direction. And of course, in north we have more than one. In east we also have more than one. For south, we have only one, and the western direction, we also have 2, the 4th one and the 5th one also.
KISHAN, we have a question here from Dr. Devanand Bhagwan and from Suriname. He's asking, enlighten us please on the location. I think you touched on this before, but if you could just raise it again. Enlighten us on location of toilets, kitchen, yellow lamps, round tables, and mirrors.
So mirrors are best to put on the eastern and the northern walls in every direction. If you have it in your room, it's better to put it on the northern wall or the eastern wall or any other room in the house. The toilets are the best to place in the northwestern direction, the western direction, southwest, south directions. From the southeast till up to the north, we do not put toilets. And what was the other thing?
Round tables.
No, round tables actually, a table you can have everywhere. That doesn't matter. And a round table, it's not that such a big point to have it in the house. Of course, the round the circle form is best for the northwestern direction and the western direction because that's related to the wind element. So when you build something in the house, so in the walls, you can have some round figures, just as I think Javier was also showing and David, the different designs in the houses. So each direction holds certain forms that can be used in the walls and in the designing. But the table in the house, it doesn't matter where you can put that. It's any direction you can have that.
Excellent, thank you. Radha from Suriname, would you like to ask your question?
Oh, yes. Hi. Thank you. I couldn't mute before, so yeah. So basically, first of all, I wanted to thank you all for a wonderful, enlightened talk you all gave. This is really broadened my mind here. Thank you so much, all of you. So my question is basically, consciousness is very important when we design. That means we have to be anchored to consciousness with the capital C, means the big consciousness. So in that way, we can, of course, automatically and spontaneously create better designs and in tune with natural law, which will or could enhance our happiness on this planet. I just wanted to come back to that one line, which I think the third speaker mentioned in his speech. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. Would you like him to respond?
Yes.
Javier?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Well, as the first part of my speech, I was mainly focused on explaining consciousness and consciousness as the basis of everything, and consciousness from different points of views. No, I explained. Well, I didn't explain. I mentioned some phrases from physicists, from architects, from yogis, about what is consciousness and how this element of creation is the only element of creation, and how architecture as being part of this material world, and this material world being also an expression of consciousness, is a science of consciousness. So when we do an architecture that is properly designed according with natural law, what we are doing is to enhance our consciousness, to give as Maharaj said, no, in the last, the purpose of Vastu is beyond architecture. The purpose of Vastu is enlightenment. The purpose of Vastu is perfect health. It's perfect health of the mind, of the body, of the emotions, and of the spirit. And when we have all these areas in perfect harmony, then we are living in a happiness, and that happiness we can say that is enlightenment. So this architecture is for happiness, we can say, and this architecture is enlightenment and for full development of consciousness.
Excellent, thank you. Vijaya Kumar Kamar.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, good evening, madam. My question is whether the Vastu placements, the Vastu depends upon the perpetual moment of the earth, gravity, and the wind movement, wind direction. Whether the Vastu placements applicable in India are same in Caribbean, or my question is whether the same positions apply in southern hemisphere or the northern hemisphere. This was my question is.
So whether the same rule applies to Western countries as it does to India. Kishan?
If you allow me, please.
Yes, please.
Because I show some study. The last study I showed was specifically about this question. No, we studied together with several researchers from different countries, 160 different Vastu homes in Northern Hemisphere and in Southern Hemisphere. And we found that the laws that are applied in Northern and Southern Hemisphere are exactly the same. So Vastu is according with the position, the east position of the sun and the north and south pole. And that is a reality for everybody in all over the world, the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere.
Great, thank you. We'll take our final question from Daryl. Daryl, go ahead, please.
Yes, I wanted to ask, I mean, today you guys have just whet my appetite. So I wanted to ask about upcoming training, if you guys have any online training specifically, because I'm in Austin, Texas at the moment. But I'm very, very interested in learning more about Vastu Shastra. So please, whoever wants to speak on that. Thank you.
Who should answer that? Kishan?
Well, I do have courses, the basic Vastu courses which I teach. So those are presential and people can also join online. So if we have your contact details, then we can send you the information regarding the next course. And I will send my contact details again in the chat, so maybe you can send me a message.
Excellent. So there's a course by Sudha Pai Bangalore now going on as well, according to Gangaram Pandey. So we leave that up to you all to contact. Daryl, you can contact Kishan, and you can also reach out to whoever's in Bangalore. You can also reach out to Javier. Excellent. So I want to thank all of our presenters and the members of our audience for participating today. So Kishan, Javier, David, Dr. Maraj from South Africa. Thank you all so much. Your presentations were fantastic. We really enjoyed this. Everyone is completely enlightened by all that you've shared. Thank you very, very much. And now I will invite Janine to take over and formally end today's program.
Thank you, Shalima. Thank you for being an excellent moderator as always. Thank you to everybody who took the time to participate, the presenters, the audience. It's always just an interesting conversation going on here. And I think we can never have enough time, right? So thank you to everybody for being here, to the advisory and planning team led by Dr. Kumar Mahabir. As you know, it's a team effort directed by the people in the Indian diaspora. So once again, to Ms. Shalima Mohammed, thank you. To Satsudeo as well from Trinidad. To Dr. Tara Singh and Mark Ramdin from New York. To Boise Sue and KABREJOS from Florida. To Jay Sears from Grenada. Lalita Adin and Sharmila Ramachan from Suriname, and others from South Africa. Also, our IT manager behind the scenes, Ravin Ramsingh, who has been recording the program and will edit and upload it to YouTube and to our website for posterity. So you guys can always go back to that if you missed anything. And as I have said before in the beginning of this meeting, it's hosted by the Indo-Caribbean Cultural Centre. So please feel free to contact the ICC to publish your books and reports. Also send us your WhatsApp and email addresses so we can continue to build our database. And if you haven't already, please go like our Facebook page, because the meetings are also live streamed there. And in order to continue this program, as I mentioned earlier, if you have any suggestions or donations, please contact Dr. Mahabir for the details. Our next topic for next Sunday is employment and business opportunities in Guyana and Suriname. So another promising topic. So until next Sunday, same time, same virtual space. That's it for today. I'm Janine from Belize saying goodbye. May God bless you all. Tanya.